not sure I'd actually interpret it that way, but anyway.
Okay,
so Councillor Wayne.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow on from Councillor Darby. When we considered this earlier, and this was at an earlier phase, it was pretty clear that there were a multiple of things that were going to affect the facade, the front of the building. It was not just the garage, there was the implication on absence of trees because of the fact that buildings are going to be much closer to the street, where people are going to put their recycling, their rubbish bins and the like, the fencing controls. You put all of those things together, from a design perspective, it could be worst case scenario. So I side with Councillor Darby on this.
Very good. Councillor Ross.
Just for our information, can you just explain, because it's further on, I believe, about the fencing recommendations made by the panel, the heights and etc., because they've again gone against what we want. Could you just explain that, because that is very relevant to stick next to the garage, and I therefore, what Councillor Hulse and Councillor Darby have been saying, I think that only exacerbates it again.
So in most of the operative legacy district plans, a front boundary fence was generally permitted up to about 1.8 metres or 2 metres in height, or a wall. But in the character areas, the older suburbs, they often had more restrictive controls with a 1.2 metre maximum and so on. But generally across the board in suburban Auckland, the 1.8 metres or even 2 metres has been permitted for many, many years. And the council's case at the hearings was to apply, from recollection, a 1.5 metre maximum. You could go in excess of that as long as the parts above 1.5 were transparent, semi-transparent, railings or trellis work rather than a solid wall. So that was our approach. The panel has recommended that the fence rule is deleted in its entirety, and whether it was intended or not, the outcome of that is that you could build up to 2.5 metres in height on the front boundary, but they retained the side boundary and rear boundary fence control of 2 metres. So the officer recommendation is to not go back to our case of 1.5 and then transparent, but to introduce a 2 metre high maximum for front boundary fences, and that is a subsequent recommendation, as you note.
So, I mean, the bottom line is that those two, what we're talking about here, plus the fences combined, I'm afraid I can't support this.
Right. Any further speakers?
Just a question.
Denise.
So how often do you get one-off individual home garages, boom, boom, boom? Is it not, I mean, it's referred to in a couple of places here that it's really just about development of 3 or more dwellings, and we've got provisions to help with that. How often do you get individual homes that all front up their garages all and create the problem?
I think it looks more obvious when it's 3, 4 or 5 dwellings as part of a multi-unit development and they've all got the garages. That's where it really stands out.
Right.
Yes, there are many places, and there have been for many years, where someone on their residential property, a 500, 600, 700 square metre section, puts a double garage in front of the house. I mean, that has happened. It's more common for people to set them back or to put them to the side, or but it does happen. I can't quantify how often it happens.
So in D3B, where it's referring to, we will have provisions that allow us to adequately assess location and design of garages for 3 or more dwellings.
Yep.
That should take care
of the multiple garages, but it wouldn't take care of the situation for someone building a single house or 2 houses where they put the garage in a dominant way. I think we have to be upfront about that. There wouldn't be controls over that any longer. It's the 3 or more dwelling developments that we would have the ability to say no.
But it would be an unusual scenario for a one-off home to be next door to someone else and next door to someone else and next door to someone else, all doing the same thing.
I think, as John says, it's hard to quantify, and there have been situations where we've had subdivisions where they're individual sites, they're quite small sites, and individually single houses are built, but the total streetscape is of a whole lot of garages. So we can't say it doesn't happen. It does happen in some parts of Auckland. but we can't quantify exactly how often it happens.
Okay, I'm going to put this. Division, please. Yep.
Councillors, you're voting on 6.11.1A for big D, as you see it on the screen. Your Worship.
Aye.
Councillor Anai.
Aye.
Councillor Brewer.
For.
Councillor Casey. Councillor Cashmore.
Or.
Councillor Clow.
No.
Councillor Cooper.
Yes.
Councillor Darby.
Against.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Deputy Mayor Hulse.
No.
Councillor Crum.
For.
Councillor Lee.
No.
Councillor Penrose.
For.
Councillor Quacks.
For.
Councillor Stewart.
For.
Councillor Sir John Walker.
For.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
No.
Councillor Watson.
Against.
Councillor Webster.
Yep.
Councillor Wood.
For. Okay, now we'll move on to the next item, and that is E. E by gum.
My God. So this is an interesting one. The panel has recommended a new type of development called an integrated residential development, which wasn't in the plan as notified. It would encompass a retirement village, for example, but the way they've defined it, it's any development in terms of this recommendation here in the single house zone that doesn't comply with one dwelling per site rule in the single house zone. So it's very broad, and yet the panel has recommended that this activity is restricted discretionary, and given how broad it is and the characteristics of the single house zone, our recommendation is that that should be rejected and that a full discretionary activity resource consent would be more appropriate, so we can look at a wide range of impacts on the amenity of the single house zone.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
I think Councillor Wood had moved that.
Don't I get my,
Okay, there are about 20 movers on that occasion.
I think I was.
Councillor George, you seem to be the first voice that I heard, so
Get my name on the record, please.
be the man.
Busy.
Okay, and someone on this side here, who would like to second it on this side here? Councillor John Watson, because you don't do a lot of seconding.
George Wood.
Good on you. Good on you, John. You need to stick your hand up more often on the seconding and the.
It's lucky you're
all that.
standing
Johnny,
down.
we're hanging
John,
out
the
for you,
Team
mate.
George Wood ticket, John.
I'll
You're
put
the
that, all
Team
those in
George
favour say
Wood.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Right, move on to
Well, I want to
item
vote against.
F.
E.
No, this is F. And this is the recommending the deletion of retained affordable housing provision.
Kathy will second this. I'll move it, Kathy will second.
Move it, second.
I'll move it.
We've got a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, just the neoliberal stuff.
Yeah, the
The neoliberals over here.
Don't like,
Fire everyone up over there.
prefer unaffordable housing? Excellent. Okay, right, let's
Okay.
fire.
Retained affordable housing, so introduced through the unitary plan a mechanism where 15 or more dwellings were being proposed, so a fairly medium to large scale residential development. There was a rule in the plan that said 10% of the dwellings must be retained affordable housing, and that was defined in the plan. It was a fairly detailed definition of retained affordable housing. There were many submissions on this point, and through the course of the hearings, Council did refine its position and move towards more incentivising by providing a bonus mechanism, additional height and floor space if retained affordable housing was provided as part of a development. In very broad terms, retained affordable housing could be housing that's transferred to a social housing provider, or housing that's retained in private ownership, but there were specific requirements around the income of the owners or renters of that accommodation and the price that the dwellings were rented or sold. So there's probably more complexity in there than that, but that's the general thrust of the council's case. The panel has recommended that the provisions should be removed, that they are affordable housing is more likely to be achieved through the changes to the rules around things like density, through the rezoning that they proposed, through the additional capacity, and the panel was not convinced. And on balance, we feel that this is one that that the council should accept.
I agree. Yep.
Right, speakers, please. Yes, councillor Kathy Kear's here.
I'm disappointed that the staff haven't held the line on this. We've had a very long political debate. We got to the end of it. We all agreed on the 10% rule. And what the independent hearings panel said is let the market provide, build them and the price will come down. Well, where's the evidence of that? And so the staff have shifted position without, just willy-nilly, really. It's just you had one political position, it is a political position, and you've shifted. There's no real evidence to back that up. So let me provide some evidence. Today on TreadMe, there are 248 houses that cost 400,000 or less. 248 houses. There are 1,030 that cost 1.5k, 1.5 million or more. That sums it up. And all those houses, half of them are uninhabitable because they're relocatables. That's the issue here. Where is the low-cost housing right now? Have we got it in our SHAs? No, we don't. Tend to start about 500,000 and go up. None of them started going down. None of them looked at alternatives, low-cost housing, none of them. And that's the process we're in charge of. Yeah, that's our process. So tell me, folks, where has the market provided? Just tell me, anybody answer it. Where has the market provided the low-cost housing that this city needs? Where is the affordable housing for older people? We have 300 on our waiting list, and we are not even building any more pensioner houses as a council. Well, that's going to change in the new council, I can assure you. So where is the low-cost housing? If we don't make the developers put it in with the 10% rule, it ain't going to happen because there's no evidence to support it from the past. So I'm disappointed, John. I thought you'd have held the line, and that's why I appeal to my colleagues. This has to happen. We cannot leave it to the market because the market doesn't do it.
Okay, so that was good passion, but councillors, what I want you to do is let us just respect the fact that the officers are taking a fairly impartial line here. Now, ultimately, this is politics. This is where we make the decision. It's the reason why it's come back to us finally. It's all part of the process, and so the officers have had the opportunity of reflecting on it from a technological and planning viewpoint. Right? So I've got some questions, but I really think it's important not to just try and hang the officers. The answer lies around this table. So let's just have the debate here. Now I've got, give me some hands so I can get a batting line-up going here. Now I've got, the way I've got it at the moment is Councillor Ross, Councillor Penny H. We'll go over this side to Councillor Cam, then we'll come back to that side for Councillor John. Then we'll go back over to this side for Councillor Dick. Then we'll go back to this side for Councillor Denise. Then we'll go back that side. No, back to this side, Councillor Arthur. Have I missed anyone out? Councillor Mike.
Is this the 3 and 3 rule?
Come on, George.
Order. It's not an unreasonable request, but I suspect that we won't have any problems getting around that rule in this particular debate.
Got me to keep score.
I'll keep the score, George. You generally tend to be about 4 or 5 items ahead of where everyone else is.
That's very smart. Take it very seriously, don't you, George?
I've got Councillor Ross.